As the winds blow strong and the drums of war echo across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen finally arrives in Westeros. Her ship cuts through the waves like a silver arrow, with the sails of the Targaryens fluttering against the gray sky. Dragonstone looms on the horizon like a reminder of his legacy, a dark island marked by blood and fire. When her feet touch the sand, she feels a strange sensation run through her body. Her eyes fixate on the ancient fortress as if she hears ancient whispers calling to her. Something inside her awakens, something ancient, deep, and dangerous. The climb up the steps of Dragonstone is slow, almost ceremonial. Tyrion, Missandei, and Varys watch in silence as the Mother of Dragons approaches the black stone throne. There, where Aegon and Rhaenys once sat, she feels the weight of history fall on her shoulders. But it's not a noble responsibility that consumes her. It's pride, obsession, and a thirst for absolute glory. When she touches the throne, visions invade her mind. Valyria's fire, the screams of the dead in Harrenhal, her father's blank stare as he shouts, "Burn them all," yet she doesn't back down. That night, the winds howl louder. Daenerys huddles alone at the top of the fortress, under Drogon's watchful eye. The voices do not cease. They call her the rightful queen, the bearer of the flame, the redeemer of the dragon's blood. "They will never love you," says a voice like her father's. "But they will fear you," she smiles. What is love to someone born to rule by fire? Tyrion tries to talk to her, to make plans, but she ignores him. His mind is made up, the capital won't wait. The next morning, Varys and Tyrion are summoned. She demands reports on the position of the enemy armies, but not to prepare but to destroy. "Cersei rules in King's Landing?" she asks, with a feverish gleam in her eyes. "Then King's Landing will be reduced to ashes." Tyrion tries to argue, speaks of innocence, of the importance of winning hearts. But Daenerys cuts him off with a bitter laugh. "My father tried to be loved and was betrayed. I won't make the same mistake." Tyrion realizes that something has changed, and fears that it's already too late. Tyrion Lannister continued to stare at Daenerys with a look full of desperation and urgency. The dark room in Dragonstone resonated with the crackling of wood in the fireplace, but there was a coldness between them that no fire could dispel. "You have the throne at your fingertips, Daenerys. Don't destroy it with fire and fear. Rule by what made you special. Compassion." She smiles, but it's a hard, opaque smile. "Compassion is a luxury of the weak, Lord Tyrion. I've seen what happens to the weak." Grey Worm, standing to the side, keeps his countenance impassive, but his voice comes out low and tense. "Many of our brothers have died to free the innocent. If we burn them all, who are we fighting for?" Daenerys turns her face slowly, her eyes sparkling. "We fight for tomorrow, and in tomorrow only those who accept my peace will remain." Missandei, quieter until then, steps forward. Her voice is soft but shaky, as if each word weighs tons. "You have set me free, my queen. You gave me a new life, but it wasn't so that I could see children burned by the heavens." Daenerys approaches her, her eyes watery but cold. "I've seen dead children too, Missandei. In Meereen, crucified. In Astapor, sold as merchandise. If I hesitate, Westeros will do the same." Tyrion tries to intervene once more. "The people are not Cersei, my queen." But Daenerys raises her hand and silences the room. "The people cheered Ned Stark being beheaded. They applauded my ancestors being murdered. No more applause. Now they will kneel." And no one dared contradict her any longer. Daenerys' madness does not manifest itself in outbursts, but in a dangerous calm. She begins to plan the attack with almost clinical precision. The dragons have been fed constantly, the Unsullied are doing urban assault training, and Yara's fleet is prepared to block all the exits from Blackwater Bay. Without warning, Daenerys sends Grey Worm and his squad to burn down villages near the capital. Rumors spread fast. The Mother of Dragons has become a shadow that plagues the skies. Cersei smiles on her throne, believing that this will only increase popular hatred for Daenerys. But she underestimates the fear. With King's Landing under siege and the population plunged into panic, Tyrion tries one last time to convince the queen. He pleads for diplomacy, for an alternative to genocide. Daenerys just watches the sea from the balcony of the fortress, cuddling Drogon as if he were a child. Broken chains didn't bring me here to negotiate with traitors. Tyrion realizes that he has lost. He begins to plan his defection, perhaps even betraying Daenerys, but he knows that any false step will be fatal. The fire of the dragons and the attacks of the Unsullied have consumed everything. Daenerys has crushed her enemies without them having a chance. With the brutal fall of King's Landing, Daenerys Targaryen conquered what she had sought for years, the Iron Throne. But when she finally sat on it, surrounded by rubble and silence, she realized that her victory was hollow. The streets of the capital were smoking, covered in bodies and ashes. "They fear me," she murmured, running her fingers along the black iron blade that made up the throne. But there was no celebration. The people were silent. The bells didn't ring. Only the wind whistled through the ruins. Tyrion watched from afar, his face marked with disappointment. The following evening, he entered the throne room with firm steps but a broken heart. "You've won, Daenerys. Congratulations. Now you rule over ashes." She looked up, emotionless. "Peace requires sacrifice." Tyrion shook his head, his eyes watering. "That's not peace. It's fear. You have turned what you swore to destroy." Daenerys stood up. "You've never understood. It's not love that builds lasting kingdoms. It's fear. And I am fear incarnate." Meanwhile, Varys, who had narrowly escaped execution, began spreading secret letters. "The true inheritance lies with Jon Snow," he wrote, "not with the Queen of Ashes." In the shadows of Westeros, whispers were growing. Varys quietly gathered allies. Old lords, silent masters, even survivors from the north. Daenerys' paranoia grew. She was sending spies, burning down entire villages for rumors of rebellion, and the winter winds only made her mistrust grow. Missandei, still faithful, tried to calm the storm. "You are alone, my queen," said Missandei one night, as she watched her leaning over the map of the kingdom, scribbling with charcoal the regions that had to be purified. "I always have been," Daenerys replied dryly, "but now no one can stop me." Missandei, in a trembling voice, insisted, "The people can still be yours if you listen to them, if it's more than fire and blood." The answer was as cold as ice. "They don't deserve my mercy. They deserve my order." And so the Mad Queen consolidated her dominion over death. What she didn't expect was that death would, in fact, come looking for her. To the north, the White Wanderers crossed the wall with violence. Tormund saw with his own eyes as the ice fortress fell under the unrelenting attacks of the immortal beings. The advance was relentless. Within weeks, the lands of the Umber and Karstark were swept away. The north tried to resist, but was engulfed by an impossible darkness. Jon Snow, seeing that all was lost, ordered a general retreat. "We're going to King's Landing. We only have what's left of the south." Daenerys laughed when she heard this. "Now they're looking for me?" she sneered. But this was no time for sarcasm. She summoned her 3 dragons and flew to meet the coming terror. The battle was epic. The flames of Drogon and Rhaegal burned hundreds of dead with each onslaught. But the Night King was more than an ordinary enemy. He raised a spear made of pure ice, shrouded in ancient magic, and threw it with surgical precision. Viserion fell first, pierced through the chest, collapsing like a burning comet. Drogon tried to protect Daenerys, but was surrounded by frozen shadows and felled little by thousands of undead, who attacked him like ants on fallen prey. Jon saw Daenerys lying next to Drogon in the snow and ashes, just a few minutes before the Night King himself came near her. Jon called out her name, but she didn't answer. She just stroked Drogon's scales, or what was left of him, who was also hit by another spear of ice before he could get up. Daenerys tried to calm him down, but she knew the dragon wouldn't get up again. Jon could only watch from afar as the Night King's sword pierced Daenerys' back. Only one dragon remained, the impetuous Rhaegal. Jon Snow, seeing that Daenerys had succumbed to the ancestral being's blow, mounted Rhaegal and went on the attack. Targaryen blood burned in his veins. Rhaegal responded to his every thought. It was Jon who faced the Night King, making Rhaegal make his way through the Wanderers and exchanging sword blows with the Night King while his dragon spat fire in all directions. It was Jon who survived the fight when all seemed lost. But when he realized that Daenerys herself had risen from the dead and was trying to attack him, he hesitated to strike her. Even in the face of the imminent end, he ordered a general retreat and fled on the dragon's back. The southern lands were now home to the last living people in Westeros. The Night King did something unthinkable. He resurrected 2 dragons. From within the frozen entrails of Viserion and Drogon, he invoked an ancient and dark magic. The creatures came back deformed, roaring with a sound like the end of time itself. And to ride them, he chose the mother of dragons herself. But she was no longer the same. She was an ice queen now, silver-haired and livid-skinned, soulless, with a great sword mark on her torso, riding a resurrected Drogon, spitting black flames that destroyed everything around her. With her and the Night King riding the 2 dragons of the apocalypse, true night fell over Westeros. Not even sunlight could pierce the skies anymore. Jon Snow, the last bastion of hope, retreated to King's Landing with the survivors of the North, the rivers, and even the former Slavers' Bay. There's no way we can win a war against the dead and their dragons. But it was Tyrion who proposed one last attempt. What if we use their blood against them? You're Targaryen. You still have Rhaegal. Bran, now a being of infinite consciousness, came up with the most insane plan. We'll hand you over, Jon. You'll offer yourself to the Night King. He'll want that prize. But that's when we can hit him. If we're ready. The strategy was suicidal. Arya, as a silent shadow, would infiltrate with a dagger forged from the Sword of Dawn, enchanted with ancient spells of the Children of the Forest. Tyrion would gather the last alchemists from the Red Keep to recreate the living fire, but now mixed with essence of liquid obsidian. Meanwhile, Bran would manipulate the ravens and the winds, predicting their every move. Jon would fly up to the Night King on Rhaegal, feigning submission. I am fire and blood, and if I must burn for all, then so be it. The final meeting took place in the ruins of the ancient dragon pit. The sky was black. Daenerys, cold as marble, descended in an icy roar with the corrupted Drogon. The Night King followed, mounted on Viserion, his gaze as sharp as 1,000 razors. Jon dismounted and knelt down. Take me, but don't attack the others. The Night King held out his hand, and it was at that moment that Arya emerged from the shadows, leaping through bones and smoke. She took aim at the Night King's chest with the enchanted dagger. But it wasn't enough. The Night King turned and paralyzed Arya by the neck before she could cut him. Jon, seeing that the plan was failing, shouted something in High Valyrian and drove his own sword through his heart, in sync with the touch of the ancient metal blade. The explosion was immediate. The Night King shattered and ice spread in all directions and disintegrated. Daenerys, freed for an instant from her curse, looked at Jon before crumbling to ash. The dead dragons collapsed, and with them all the undead. They fell like puppets without strings, in absolute silence. For days there was only mourning. Jon was dead. His body was taken to the sacred grove, where Sansa, Bran, and Arya mourned his memory. But Bran, with the help of the ancient rituals of the Children of the Forest and Melisandre, who had returned just for this moment, led a rebirth that had never been attempted before. Rhaegal, the last living dragon, flew in circles over the ritual, as if crying. And then, as the moon turned red, Jon opened his eyes. He was alive and different. His soul now contained the spark of dragon fire and the serenity of eternal ice. With the death of the Night King and the end of the Ice Queen, the people clamored for leadership. No longer based on conquest or inheritance, but on sacrifice, courage, and rebirth. Jon was crowned Targaryen and Stark King. With a new emblem of wolf and dragon intertwined, he restored Westeros. Not with force, but with justice. Mounted on Rhaegal, he flew over the kingdoms not as a dominator, but as a guardian. The winds of winter finally ceased. and a new era began, forged in sacrifice, sustained by the memory of the dead, and lit by the flame of a king reborn.